Whoever talks about nothing does not know what he is doing, and speaking about nothing, he makes it into a something. But speaking this way, he speaks against what he means. He contradicts himself. But self-contradictory speech is an offense against the fundamental rule of speech, logos, against logic. Talking about nothing is illogical. Whoever talks and thinks illogically is an unscientific person. Now, whoever goes so far as to talk about nothing within philosophy, which, after all, is the home of logic, deserves all the more to be accused of offending against the fundamental rule of all thinking. Such talk about nothing consists in utterly senseless prepositions. Moreover, whoever takes nothing seriously takes the side of nullity. He obviously promotes the spirit of negation and serves disintegration. Talking about nothing only is completely contrary to thought. It undermines all culture and faith. Whatever both disregards the fundamental law of thinking and also destroys faith and the will to construct in pure nihilism. Give such considerations, we will do well to strike from our interrogative sentence the superfluous turn of phrase instead of nothing, and restrict the sentence to the simple and precise form, why are there beings at all? Nothing would stand in the way of this, if in the formulation of our question, if in the asking of this question altogether, we had as much license as it may have seemed up to now. But in asking the question we stand within a tradition, for philosophy has constantly and always asked about the ground of beings. With this question, philosophy had its inception. In this question, it will find its end, provided that it comes to an end in greatness, and not in an impotent decline. Since the inception of the question of what is, the question of what it is not and of nothing has gone side by side with it. So let's focus on that for a second. Since the inception of the question of what is, the question of what is not and of nothing has gone side by side with it. So at the same time, asking questions about what is and what is not would be inherent to philosophy. And that we have to examine both. But it does not do so superficially, as an accompanying phenomenon. Instead, the question about nothing takes shape in accordance with breadth, depth, and originality. So let's highlight those families. So we got breadth, depth, and originality. That's the shape it'll take, with which the question about beings is asked on each occasion. And conversely, the manner of asking about nothing can serve as a gauge and criterion for the manner of asking about things. If we think about this, then the interrogative sense, pronounced at the start, why are there beings at all instead of nothing, appears far more suitable to express the question about beings than the abbreviated version of all. Our introduction of talking about nothing here is not a careless and overly enthusiastic manner of speaking, nor our own invention, but merely strict respect for the original tradition regarding the sense of the fundamental question. Still, in general, this talk of nothing remains contrary to thought. So he could also mean when I hear the talk of nothing, I often think about idle chat, speaking about things that don't really matter on topics that don't really matter. So I feel we could apply this, what he's saying, talking about nothing, could apply to many different categories and time periods and regional differences. So what matters in one country will matter to someone else, and what talking about nothing means in one country and what it will mean in another country. So remember, when he's saying things like this, you don't always have to just apply it the way he wants to apply it. The best way of understanding someone's theory and what they're saying or their hypothesis or their mode of thought is to apply it in your own way, in your own life, in your own circumstances. As they say, the proof is in the pudding. But what if both the concern for the proper respect for the fundamental rules of thinking as well as the fear of nihilism, which would both like to advise against talk of nothing, rested on a misunderstanding. This is in fact the case. Of course, the misunderstanding that is being played out here is not accidental. Its ground is lack of understanding that has long ruled the question about beings. But this lack of understanding stems from an oblivion of being that is getting increasingly rigid. Oblivion of being. So the nothingness of being, because oblivion, eternity, infinity. So oblivion is kind of like endless, black, despair. When I think of oblivion, that's what I think of. But then again, oblivion could be an endless bliss to some. For we cannot just decide outright whether logic and its fundamental rules can provide any measure for the question about beings as such. Let's go over that again. For we cannot just decide outright whether logic and its fundamental rules can provide any measure for the question about beings as such. So beings as such, beings as they are, that logic cannot provide any measure for the question. Maybe it can't provide for the question, but it can explain. That's how I would look at it. Logic and human behavior kind of expose us for the insanity that we sometimes perform. So logic in its own way can be applied in different routes. It could be the other way around, that the whole logic that we know and that we treat like a gift from heaven is grounded in a very definite answer to the question about beings, and that, consequently, any thinking that simply follows the laws of thought established logic is intrinsically incapable of even beginning to understand the question about beings, much less of an act unfolding it and leading it toward an answer. So, wow, that's a kind of a contentious thought, right? So, again, let's look at it again. It could be the other way around, that the whole logic that we know and that we treat like a gift from heaven is grounded in a very definite answer. And the question, intrinsically incapable, he says, to help us begin to understand about beings. So, the unfolding is a Hegelian term. So, synthesis, antithesis, synthesis. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. There we go. Yes, so, which is if you've ever seen the triangle from one end to one end to one end, and then the top of that triangle goes to the other end, and it keeps going and going and going and going. Well, I feel like logic could apply to that, because empirically, logic, if I'm going to hit this ball, it's going to hit this other thing and react and react. I think pool, the game pool, might be a counterexample to what he's saying here. In truth, it is only an illusion of rigor and scientificity when one appeals to the principle of contradiction and to the logic in general, in order to prove that all thought and talk about nothing is contradictory and therefore senseless. Logic is then taken as a tribunal secure for all eternity, and it goes without saying that no rational human being will call into doubt its authority as the first and last court of appeal. Whoever speaks against logic is suspected implicitly or explicitly of arbitrariness. This mere suspicion already counts as an argument and an objection, and one takes oneself to be exempted from further authentic reflection. One cannot, in fact, talk about the deal with nothing as if it were a thing, such as the rain out there, or a mountain, or any object at all. Nothing remains in principle inaccessible to all science. Whoever truly wants to talk of nothing must necessarily become unscientific. To talk of nothing. He's using nothing in a very different way. It seems like he's trying to make the case against always rigidly following logic or applying logic to understand humans, to define humans. But yes, it is true that there is this, some people will be a tad bit too logical, but that's almost as if you're coming off as a Star Trek Spock character and you're coming off as robotic. But let's see if he mentions anything later in the book about people who are so illogical that they should have some logic. So let's see what's going to happen here, because he's taking us down a road, he's building the base for what he's going to present to us. So let's see where this goes. All scientific thinking is just a derivative and rigidified form of philosophical thinking. There it is. Okay, so that's what we're going to leave off here. We didn't get very far, but the video is coming to 10:32, so that way we won't have to upload for too long.